Hey everyone, it's Y again, and for this video, I want to take a look at how the Series X enhancement patch has improved the visuals for split screen gameplay. All the gameplay that you'll see in this video was captured on the Xbox Series X, and anytime you see this logo, you'll know the gameplay was captured before the patch, and then this logo for gameplay captured after the patch. With that all being said, let's jump into it. Let's kick this off with 2-player split screen. I edited this gameplay to show the enhanced version running at the top, with the pre-patched unenhanced version at the bottom. I noticed that some of the visual occurrences that happened before the patch still happen, like lower quality shadows that are cast in the distance. Nothing really caught my eye for the anniversary graphics on Halo Combat Evolved. The visuals reacted just as they did before the patch. And if we take a look at the anniversary graphics for Halo 2's campaign, I do notice that the gameplay feels a bit smoother, but we still see grass popping in at about the same distance. And objects like this tree here will switch between their lower and higher detailed models at about the same distance. From Halo 3 on up, we're still stuck with those ugly black bars when playing 2-player split screen. One thing that caught my eye for Halo 3 is that certain effects do render at a further distance, like the fire you can see on the Crash Phantom. There's definitely some noticeable grass pop in when you compare the two versions side by side. Here's a great example of just how intense the pop in is for grass. For this shot, I used both the Acrophobia and Blind Skulls. Here it is again, slowed down. Equipment is also rendered at a further distance in the enhanced version. This is about as far away as you can be from the equipment before the render starts to disappear in both versions. I noticed a few improvements with ODST. Enemies and objects like crates, barriers, and cars render at a further distance, which is great if you're driving in a crowded area because it gives you more time to react to obstacles in your way. Water also sees a benefit, with ripples being rendered as you drive through it. Out of each of the games in the collection, Reach sees the biggest visual improvement. The changes between these versions is really night and day. The pre-patch version is just covered in low detailed objects off in the distance. The ground was nearly absent of all vegetation, and when it did have some plants, like these bushes, you wouldn't see them until they popped in right in front of your face, which was not only distracting, but kind of an eyesore. Luckily, that's all in the past, thanks to the enhanced patch. Looking over the little gameplay of Halo 4 that I did record, there wasn't much of any difference at all. So let's move on and take a look at 4-player split screen. Both Halo Combat Evolved and Halo 2 Classic don't show any changes, at least that I could spot. And when it came to Halo 3, I noticed that grenades had a further rendering distance, and weapons wouldn't use a lower detailed model until you were further away. And similar to what we saw in ODST, objects like barriers and crates now render at a much more reasonable distance. Forge maps also see a nice bump when it comes to 4-player split screen. Lighting effects now work, and distant objects now properly render. And power-ups can also be seen from a distance. Just look at that camo at the bottom and overshield at the top. Neither of them are visible in the pre-patch version, unless you zoom in. And as you might have guessed by now, once again, Reach sees the biggest improvement. You'll still occasionally see a rock in the distance look sort of blobby, but this is 4-player split screen, so that can be overlooked, and it's not as bad as it used to be. There's actually grass and plant life, which was completely absent from the pre-patch version. One issue I noticed with the map reflection on 4-player split screen is that from a distance, windows would look opaque, even after they've been broken. Thankfully, with these enhancements, that doesn't happen unless you're a further distance away. I captured a decent amount of gameplay for the map Condemned, and noticed quite a few improvements. The static effect that you see in doorways that lead to the low gravity room can now be seen from a slightly further distance. But the biggest change you'll see on this map is that more objects will be seen with a higher detailed model at an even further distance. This becomes painfully apparent just doing a simple walkthrough of the map. You're going to have less steps looking like slopes, and panels looking well like that. Little details, like the decals on the walls, weren't previously rendered in 4-player split screen. Even health packs can be seen from a further distance, which is always good for gameplay. Playing Halo Reach in split screen with these enhancements is like needing glasses for the longest time and then finally getting some where you can actually see what you're doing. Out of everything I tested for this video, hands down the biggest improvement goes to 4-player split screen played on Tempest. Before the enhancements, the map almost looked like it came straight from Nintendo 64. Nearly all the objects in the map use low detailed models unless you are right up on them. And just like Forge World, this map has no grass anywhere to be found in the pre-patched version. Luckily for Halo 4, before the patch, split screen wasn't in as bad a shape, so we're not going to see those drastic changes like we did in Reach. Though, similar to Reach, we do see grass again being rendered where it wasn't before. Even if it is rendered only at a very short distance, it's still being rendered now. Which finally brings us to Halo 2 Anniversary. One thing to note is that when I recorded the pre-patch gameplay, the colors came out all wrong, and I tried to correct it the best I could, but it's not perfect. So I ask that you ignore the color differences between the two, because it's not an accurate representation of what it actually looks like when you're playing it. Halo 2 Anniversary continues the trend of now rendering grass in 4-player split screen. Here's a freeze frame where you can clearly see the grass in the patched version, where there's no grass in the pre-patched version. This flyby shot gives you a good example of just how much further out the render distance has been increased to vehicles. Not only are vehicles' render distance increased, but so has the distance that their high detailed model is used as well. And that'll be all for this video. If you enjoyed what you saw, consider hitting that like button and subscribe to my channel for more content. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.